May the 22nd, 2024. Guys, you're looking at a map. This is AccuWeather, but it's got the number of tornadoes per state up until May 19th, so 3 days ago. They're saying, and local news reported that we've had 400 tornadoes in the U.S. so far this year, and compared to 200 at this time last year. Imagine that, guys. And there was devastating tornadoes up through Iowa last night and through that area. People lost their lives. And some of the drone images, it looks like a bulldozer went through the center of some of these towns that was 100 yards wide, if not wider than that. Just total devastation, extremely high winds. And what is going on? I think it has to do with my video about the 13,000 year cycle of destruction and what we're dealing with now. But guys, this is going to repeat itself today. Before I go any deeper into this, let's look at the current weather situations and where you need to have your heads up. Guys, it's 10:30 Central Time as I'm doing the video. We had one tornado pop up, but this warning is already down. But it's going to start up in Texas, and it's going to move pretty much across the pattern that we've been seeing. As it moved up yesterday, guys, all through this area, we had dozens of tornadoes, and a lot of people lost their lives. Again, that was that path of destruction. I'll show you a couple still shots, and you can go to the link at AccuWeather where some of the storm chasers were there and watched their videos. But this is going to repeat itself, guys. You're in Arkansas now. You've got severe thunderstorm watches. You've got severe thunderstorm warnings, and then you can tell there's heavy rain in behind it. There's heat advisories all through here. Now, in Victoria, a city down in Mexico, by May 9th, they had reached 117 degrees Fahrenheit. And they have a species of monkeys called the howler monkeys. And they say they're dropping from the trees like apples from dehydration and the heat. There's been a lot of deforestation down in that area. But the earth is not really warming up because of that. That doesn't help. When you knock out thousands of acres or millions of acres of forest, you lose a lot of the cooling on the planet and oxygen. And guys, you can see coming out of Texas into Oklahoma, this system is starting to get that bow. So be very careful. This system, I think this would be 40 at maybe Oklahoma City here. It doesn't say on this map. And then northwest Arkansas, you're under the gun. But if you go north of there, going into Missouri, you've got two different sections of storms. And it looks like, guys, over in Kentucky, it's starting to heat up too. But it's setting up for a repeat of yesterday. And guys, this one of the things that is happening further north that's very unusual, they're saying that the Tornado Alley has widened, and it does appear so. I think there's reasons. But the Gulf of Mexico, the water's heating up. The Atlantic is higher or hotter than it was this time last year. But the Great Lakes are also experiencing the heating. So as you get cooler wind blowing across Canada, mixing with this warm, moist air, and then the lakes are heating up, that's throwing these tornadoes much further north than we're used to seeing. And this is now on a daily basis. Again, guys, in 1 year, we've doubled the amount of tornadoes up to this time and this point in time. Now, if you look to the north, you've got a rotating low-pressure system right there, counterclockwise. It's pulling cooler air down and across into the Great Lakes, which are too warm. They're warmer than normal, and the air that's pushing down is causing these storms to really accelerate along this area, and that's what we're seeing right now. Here is where we're seeing that sudden outburst. It's too hot. You're seeing the heat warnings here. There were heat warnings down in around Miami and the Keys just a few days ago. Let me change this satellite image. Now, check out how quickly the storms here coming out of Oklahoma into Arkansas and Missouri are expanding in this heat. Again, it's now 10:40 a.m. Central Time. It's going to be a warm, humid, hot day, and this is going to turn out to be dangerous. Watch all of this section here and to the north of this. But right as you can see the rotation pulling cooler air across the warm Great Lakes, and that's going to be a very serious situation. Now, if we look at the water vapor loop, you can see there's a lot of moisture out into the Gulf of Mexico. We are just 8 days, a week away basically from the start of hurricane season, June 1st. But here you can see there's a tremendous amount of moisture in this storm. That is why we're seeing the flash flood watches behind it. And here's the moisture being pulled off the warm Gulf of Mexico and across Mexico itself. It's looking like we're maybe starting to change from the El Nino to the La Nina pattern that's going to strengthen the hurricanes because it's going to knock out that wind shear. Remember, the Atlantic is warmer than it was last year. Now, let's look at AccuWeather for a minute. It says why tornadoes have swarmed Ohio and Pittsburgh this year. And they go into that effect of the Great Lakes being warmer than normal. And they're saying Ohio ranks second in the nation for tornadoes so far this year. And there have been record numbers of twisters in Pittsburgh. Now, usually Texas, Oklahoma are 1 and 2 in this. But things, again, are widening in the Tornado Alley, and we're seeing the Great Lakes heat up. And looking back at this first map, it says for the last month, Texas has led the country for preliminary tornado reports this year. It's typical due to its size. However, on May 13th, Ohio took command of the second place ranking and remains there with 66 reports, nearly twice as any surrounding state and more than their number 9 ranking of 53 tornadoes from the entire year of 2023, guys. This year, and especially this month, an area from eastern Ohio through northern West Virginia and into Pittsburgh has seen an unusually high number of tornadoes. This region falls within the National Weather Service's Pittsburgh office. Preliminary tornado reports total 27, a new monthly record since 2005, and nearly twice the previous record of 16 set in August 2021. It's heating up. According to reports from the National Weather Service in Pittsburgh, 14 tornadoes were confirmed by National Weather Service investigators in their area of responsibility on May 8th, 9th, the 11th, and the 17th. The strongest and most destructive tornado, an EF2, hit Finleyville, Pennsylvania on May 11th, damaging homes and knocking down trees over a 6-mile-long path with maximum estimated winds of 118 miles per hour. Guys, and going back to the video series, the 13,000 years of a cycle of destruction we're working on, read this. Incredibly, 5 of those tornadoes were within 20 miles of Pittsburgh. Only 16 other tornadoes have struck the area throughout recorded history. I'm going to show you a chart again of what's happened with this cooling and heating 13,000-year cycle. They're saying this is meaning that nearly a quarter of all tornadoes that have occurred there are in the last 2 weeks. This is Ohio tornado reports so far this year. Look at this, guys. 2 things fueling it: severe weather, heat, and moisture, guys. Heat. That's going to be the key word over the next few years because we are in that point in time. Now, we're going to have a lot of heat coming up this year again. We're hoping that maybe with the El Nino to La Nina change there, we may get a break from the Pacific heat wave. But the entire solar system is in a warming period. And one thing that may be different from this year than last year is the rain. And even though we're going to have some flash floods and some rivers rise, it may save some of the parched, dry areas. That's what I'm hoping for. It says the storm track caused a wetter year with more storms. In fact, Pittsburgh has set a record for total year-to-date with 22.67 inches versus their historical average of 16.45. Severe storms were also fueled by warmth pushed into the Ohio Valley by the storm track and by unusually warm Great Lake water temperature. Roy says a faster-paced pattern, this is from AccuWeather, starting near the end of the month will likely reduce the severe weather risk in the Ohio Valley. That's yet to be seen, but guys, we need a break in this tornado season. Guys, and this from yesterday, violent tornadoes cause multiple deaths, devastate towns in Iowa. A deadly tornado outbreak has killed several people and caused major damage in several Iowa towns. From Monica Danielle at AccuWeather. As we scroll down this, not counting the ads, these are some of the footage of the area. In this particular section here, just quickly as I scroll through this, looks like the damage for miles in some areas. But again, here you can go and look at the different reports. I'm going to link to this page. I can't show you these videos. They're copyrighted because of the storm chasers. You can't blame them. They work hard and they put their lives in danger. But guys, it took down the windmills. You see one burning here, and some of the information about the storm. Now, I want to show you a chart. This is one of the charts that was in the PDF about the 13,000-year cycle of destruction, and I put that PDF up free a couple of days ago in that update about this. I'll do it again, guys. You can have it. You can use it freely. Now, what we're looking at is 150,000 years ago up to the left to today. And what had happened, it was very warm for a long period of time, warmer than it is now. This is where we're at now, but for a long time it was cold. So from, let's say, it started dropping 75,000 years ago right in this area, maybe 78,000 years ago, getting below this average, going from hot to cold. And then from, say, 70,000 years, if you use this line, up until 13,000 years ago, you've got 60,000 years or so of very cold weather. But look at the peak of the heat right here. That's hotter than we are now, and that's concerning if we're on such a rapid uptick. But guys, there's things that are moving quicker than I've ever seen before. The tracking of the magnetic pole, for instance. But again, here we dealt with the 26,000 years ago. We had the Ice Age started, and that lasted, let's say, for 13,000 years. It was still cold, but it was starting to warm up. Then we had a comet strike in several locations on the planet. The forest fires filled the atmosphere with smoke, and we had these years of the Younger Dryas, and it cooled back down. See that back hook right there? You don't really see that anywhere else. And then after all of that had happened, we saw the impact on the North American ice sheet. We saw the oceans rise 400 feet without retracting because that ice went into the oceans. Now we are looking at this situation here. Look at last year. Look at the storms doubling in 1 year. How rapid a movement is that? And think about the temperatures, 117 degrees in Victoria City, down in Mexico, on May 9th, and we are not at this peak. The Lord said, I will not flood you again. This time, the fourth angel will pour his vial out upon the sun. Men will be scorched, but they will not repent. That's heat. And he's talking about increasing to fervent heat that will melt the bad elements of this planet. That's where we're going with it now. When that heat gets there and gets here and you start melting the elements of the planet, I don't think there's going to be much life left. The problem is we're getting to that point, and we're going to go through, I think, increasingly hotter summers and increasing the strength and the number of both tornadoes and hurricanes. Now, guys, what you're looking at is an animation of the movement of the magnetic poles of the planet. This is coming from northern Canada all the way almost back to the magnetic center. It's a time lapse of only 50 years. And guys, that's 28.4 or so miles per year, over 2 miles per month. Things are accelerating back to the center and we've talked about, and again, this is not physical pole, magnetic pole, but that's controlled by our sun. And that eventually affects everything. And we are dealing with the end of that cycle coming back around 13,000 years ago. This is rapid magnetic pole movement, guys. Notice your red and blue lines here, how all of a sudden they come to a perfect center and everything's balanced. I believe in the first Earth age, and if you don't understand what that is, there was an Earth age before this one. And when Genesis says the earth was void and without form, in Hebrew that word is become or became. The earth became void and without form. And I believe as the earth goes through these cycles, guys, that as it balances out, the seasons become much more normal. But as things start to change and wobbles start to occur and plates start to shift, we're seeing it. We're seeing the storms and the hurricanes, tornadoes, everything, heat, and that's the main cause of the storms, hurricanes and tornadoes. The heat increasing. Are we in the last days? We were told we were the generation of the fig tree. That generation would not pass before these things occurred. You saw that rapid movement here. Double the tornadoes in 1 year. I think that the Lord's going to step in before too much longer. And we're going to see that those feet hit the Mount of Olives. And I think that's when a lot of us will be changed into our spiritual bodies. And I think during that 1,000-year period called the millennium, this earth will rebalance itself. It will be a new earth. It won't be void and without form, and it won't be wobbling like the one we see now. The seasons will be perfect and balanced the way that God created them in the beginning. He doesn't create things void and without form. And guys, if you could only understand that, I wouldn't get the comments, but BB, you must not read your Bible. The earth is only 6,000 years old. First of all, a day with the Lord, it tells you in the Bible, if you read it, that it's 1,000 years to man. But then you had different earth ages. The earth became void. God didn't create it that way. Something happened. This time it won't be a flood. We're seeing floods everywhere, but we're talking about a world flood. This time there will be some flooding as this thing progresses because the melting of places like the Greenland ice cap, possibly some of Antarctica. But when the last time that we had an impact with those comets 13,000 years ago and the oceans rose 400 feet, guys, didn't go back down, there's proof of it. There's civilizations. Let me show you one. Guys, and so much as the scientists try to disprove these earth changes that we're going through, they want to blame it on man, get carbon tax credits and everything else, and restrict everybody but themselves with their travel and their consumption of fossil fuels. They will not admit how much of that is true, how much of this old knowledge is true. Again, when we had the impact of the comets, we had that flood did not recede. This is Dwarka off the coast of India. Look at the symbols. This is almost Sumerian Babylonian technology. But this was a legendary city. It was in all the big books, the Bhagavad Gita, all of those about great battles that were there. I think it was the city of Vishnu. So now there's divers that see it. It did not recede, guys, in the pictures. If you can look at, and I did it not yesterday, I was at the doctor's all day, but Monday, I looked at what just the U.S. and the Gulf of Mexico would look like if the waters receded from 400 feet like they rose. And it's amazing. It really matches the continental shelf there that drops off into the deeper waters of the Gulf. I'll show you that picture also, but look at this. These are fish, and this was the largest city in that part of the world. They're talking about possibly 900,000 palaces, There was a lot of crystal, silver, decorated with emeralds, and again, great battles took place, including weapons of mass destruction, aerial vehicles, and they have to downplay it till now. A couple of other images there. Another image, columns, part of the temples. It says the city was extremely well planned, divided into 6 sectors, which were in turn divided into residential and commercial areas. The city was home to beautiful large roads, gardens, artificial lakes. It is said that it was submerged in the big flood 9,000 years ago. Think about it. The impact of the ice caps 13,000 years ago and the heat, guys, it didn't happen overnight. What we're dealing with here is possibly a 4,000-year period of the full melting of the ice caps that were 2 miles high over North America, down all the way to North Carolina. So if this carbon dating is right, it could be older than that. Some say it is, but they think that it submerged around 9,000 years ago. So that would be 4,000 years that it took the ice caps, once that heat got back up, to melt and to flood the planet. And this is all still underwater, like the Bimini Road. It says in this particular article from the Yucatan Times, it says the mythical underwater city of Dwarka, India, is 9,500 years. So if that carbon dating is right, the city existed above land for 500 years. Just saying, we don't know the exact timing of it. Now this, I think it's only about 60 feet or so deep, maybe a little bit deeper. So that tells you if the waters rose 400 foot, this thing was up on a hill about 300 foot, right? You can see the diver here. Look at the magnificent quality. It says Dwarka has commanded much attraction because the site is one of the 4 Dhammas, sacred place for pilgrimage of the Hindu religion. As the legend goes, Krishna founded the city in the Gujarat's west coast. The modern city of Dwarka, which in Sanskrit means gateway to heaven, is located northwest of the state. And you can see there's a Dwarka just on shore where this is located. Magnificent buildings. Look at that. Now, this map goes back to 18,000 years ago. This was before the 14,000 or 13,000 year change. And this is called Beringia, from the Bering Strait. Here's the Aleutian Islands right here, and you start getting into Russia here. But this was land, and they talked about people from Asia walked into Canada, North America. It's showing that there were lakes and rivers. All of this green area is now part of the Bering Strait. The Arctic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean is no longer separated. 400-foot difference in elevation. That's what it looks like there. Russia, North America were connected. It was a land bridge. There were not only people there, but mastodons that traveled through there. And going back before this age, no telling what traveled there. And this is a map of it, a drone map. Beringia is all in orange. And you can see Russia here, the Bering Sea. But look how far Alaska extended out. The Aleutian Islands were much larger. Sections of California were not out of the water. You can see it going down here. But when you look at the Gulf of Mexico, again, this is just Beringia, there was a tremendous difference because it's very shallow for a long way out. You can get out before the drop-off to almost 400 feet of water before it gets deep. And let me show you that image. Now, before I go there, I do have one more image I forgot to put into this. I want to show you this. This is from what was once Beringia, up between Alaska and Russia. Some of it is still out of the water, but they think it all looked like a flat coastal plain like we see many places, lakes, rivers, things like that, and it's a land bridge. This is what remains. This is a map of that area. This section was called the Cordilleran Ice Sheet, and this was the Laurentide Ice Sheet. See how far it came down into the U.S. A lot of people saying they're finding evidence that North Carolina was heavily involved. This thing was 1 to 2 miles deep, and it was a sheer wall along these areas, like in a science fiction movie. You could be on one mountain with trees, look across a long valley, and there's a mile-high ice wall. Think about that. And so this was the path right here. They're saying it looks like there was an ice-free corridor, but it looks like it tracked just the edge of the Rocky Mountains very clearly here. And there was you had the Folsom, the Clovis tribes, things like that, civilizations there. But look how wide Beringia was going back into Russia. That's what 400 feet will do. Now, I have nautical charts from sailing in the Gulf, and I looked at those. Now, what you're looking at is the drop off into deep water here. But what I was dealing with was watching that it was around 382 feet right in this area on the west coast of Florida. And that matched this drop off into deep water. What is that telling us? And it matches the old maps. Florida was this wide. Check that out. Cuba looks like it was land bridge with the Yucatan. Look how large the Yucatan was. And the entrance to the Gulf was a very deep, deep channel, a couple 1,000 feet deep. And you can see where the Gulf Stream ran like this. Look how, again, much further that the Carolinas and Georgia went out. Look at Louisiana. And out here where you're seeing a lot of these salt domes, a lot of that was very near the surface. But Louisiana, you were almost twice as much land area. Texas, Mexico, but especially the Yucatan, Florida. Now, again, the Bimini Road is there. It's clear that it was man-made. It's underwater now. It wasn't. It looks like to me, from watching that special I mentioned about Ancient Apocalypse with Graham Hancock, that it was an ancient road that very heavy wagons or whatever it was that were coming off the ships and going up this hill. That's exactly what it looks like, a paved road, because you're dealing with a lot of weight and that hill. And if you watch Ancient Apocalypse, again, it's Netflix. It's extremely good. Covers the entire planet. But that looked like a boat ramp. But this is pretty much matching our landmass 13,000 years ago, before everything melted down because of the comet strikes. Florida, you had over twice the amount of land going from here, and it was this square-looking block. And if you look at some of those old maps, that's exactly what it shows. And I did the same thing. I don't have this particular map, but if you have charts of the Bahamas, look at the depth charts, and you're going to see that they possibly came very close to touching Florida, but except for where the Gulf Stream ran through, and that it was tied into sections of Cuba, it looked like, and all the way down through that island chain of Dominican Republic. A lot of that was larger. That's what we're dealing with. Now, if the Greenland, now we don't know how long this will take, but if the heat continues, the Greenland ice cap will eventually melt. That will raise these levels, they're saying 23 more feet. Doesn't count Antarctica ice cap. That's just the Greenland one. And it melted quite a bit during that time, because they found the impact of a 60-mile comet or meteor under the ice sheet there. Very wide, very large area that of impact. So there was some destruction of that ice sheet, but then it started heating up, and it looks like, if the carbon dating in India is correct on Dwarka, it took about 3,000 or 4,000 years for all of it to melt and rise to this level. Now, will we see that? More than likely not. My point in the whole series is that we are in a rapid heating section at the end of this 13,000-year cycle. Guys, do you know that people around the planet died last year and this year of heat strokes in record numbers? Crops were devastated. Forest fires were out of control last year in Canada. Remember all of my videos with the smoke? It came all the way into the Gulf of Mexico. Things are rapidly heating up, And I think if you don't put that into your preparation plans, you got water, food, shelter, protection, all of that. If you don't put this heat factor into it, and this is not dozens or hundreds of years away. It's already begun. It was the worst summer I have ever had in my life last year. The hottest, continuous. And you're already, again, Victoria City of Mexico, 117 by May the 9th. But we're watching it, guys. I'm going to continue to add information to this cycle, this 13,000-year cycle, as I get it. So it's going to be a continued project, but I will put the link to it. And again, that will grow. So every time you get a link to it, there may be a page or two and more information added into it until we get to that point, because I'm very interested in it, and I think it's the most dangerous situation that we've seen, because 200 tornadoes this time last year, 400 this year. People are dying. Power's out everywhere. We're getting to that point, my friends. Watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.